Now, it's time for the Anchormen podcast with Matt Gates and Dan Ball.
Welcome back to Anchormen. This is Matt Gates. I'm host of the Matt Gates Show here on One America News, and we like to go into tradecraft sometimes, the things that really impact the shifting of politics and power and media. And today I've got on the show truly one of the best investigative journalists, maybe opposition researchers that we have on the political right. And you've probably not met an opposition researcher the way you would meet a political candidate or even see their campaign managers or principal spokespeople in media. Opposition researchers work day in, day out to find the dirt, to expose it, to put it before the public, and then it gets operationalized in campaigns and all the other apparatus that we have. So I know that there is no enterprise like the Seamus Bruner enterprise to do this work, and that's why I brought here Seamus Bruner. He is no stranger to our audience on One America News. But Seamus, maybe just to set the stage a little bit for my audience, talk about you and Peter and how you guys got to working together and how you decided that what you wanted to do in life was expose the worst moments, worst deals, and worst relationships of incredibly powerful people.
Well, thank you, Matt, for that introduction. That was great. I wanted to go into politics. I studied political science, international affairs, thought I wanted to go grow up to be like Matt Gates. And then I met Peter Schweitzer and realized I don't want anything to do with that. Everybody's going to come after you with daggers. So I decided to become one of the people with a dagger and investigate the corruption. It's a whole lot more fun. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. You just follow the money and you never know where it leads, but it usually is to corruption.
Yeah, following the money is your expertise. It's what you and Peter do better than anybody in the business. And there's so much in the news right now about what the other side tried to do, converting opposition research into this counterintelligence investigation, ultimately really a criminal investigation of President Trump and his family. And when the media first start to grab a hold of this, when the media says, aha, we caught Donald Trump Jr. trying to get dirt about Hillary Clinton on the Russians, chairman of the Trump campaign, Steve Bannon, came out and said, this is crazy. We didn't need to collude with the Russians to get opposition research on Hillary Clinton. We had all of it we needed in the book written by Peter Schweitzer and Seamus Bruner, Clinton Cash. And so that really is where all of this starts. We're going to get into the Biden stuff and then also the Antifa stuff that you're all over right now. But this began with you and Peter writing the Clinton Cash book. It was a great book. It went through how they used the power of government to monetize their own lifestyle. For those who haven't checked it out, for those who need to, what's the principal lesson people are going to draw from it? And what are some of the searing moments in Clinton Cash that really caused that book to be revered as one of the greatest pieces of opposition research ever?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably my favorite investigation we've ever done. That's where I cut my teeth following the money. Schweitzer gave me a foot-tall stack of Clinton Foundation 990s, literally printed out back then. We didn't have the tools we have now, just Excel and PDFs, and said, make sense of this. So I put all of the Clinton Foundation 990s into a spreadsheet, started sorting from high to low dollar amounts. And what do you know? I mean, foreign governments, foreign businesses, it's like, what the heck? And then we did some analysis, found that the numbers to the Clinton Foundation, the numbers in the speaking fees skyrocketed really around 2008. I mean, usually when a president leaves office, the numbers start to go down. They get a big surge on the speaking fees, and then they kind of taper off. When Hillary Clinton announced that she was running against Obama in 2008, they skyrocketed, and then they only got bigger from there through the Secretary of State tenure. Then we started saying, well, what are these people paying for? And I just did a site search on state.gov. Russia, Bill Clinton's in Moscow. He's getting paid $500,000 for a 30-minute speech. What's going on at the State Department? They're negotiating New START treaties. They're doing nuclear deals. They're doing all kinds of stuff. including selling our uranium and approving that sale of Uranium One. I know you were all over that when you were in Congress. It was really, really fun times. The key takeaway was before that book came out, Hillary Clinton was soaring high on like a 60 to 70% approval rating, even amongst Republicans. You can't believe it, but it's true. I mean, back then, at least that's what the press would say. From there, it tanked. And a lot of people said, oh, but her emails. It really wasn't about her emails. The reason that people started to doubt her, I mean, yeah, the email scandal was big, but it was the fact that it was pay to play. They were selling foreign policy to the highest bidder, to America's enemies. And, I don't think, no one looked back. On the Russia part, the whole Russiagate scandal became a scandal because James Comey, Andrew McCabe, there were 5 FBI field offices investigating Clinton cash. They were starting to make its way to the Washington field office, the hub and HQ. And Andrew McCabe specifically worked with James Comey to shut those down. We now know that. And so at the same time, it was just like a month later, after they're shutting down the Uranium One investigations for Clinton, they concocted this projection deception thanks to the Clinton campaign and Fusion GPS. It had the added benefit of getting FISA warrants and totally framing President Trump. But back then it was crazy, like that the FBI worked hand in glove with the Clinton campaign to not just protect Hillary, but to project onto Donald Trump her own malfeasance.
And the incestuous nature of that really was laid bare when you saw that Andrew McCabe's wife was soliciting Hillary Clinton's endorsement in a state Senate campaign, while the Little Rock, Arkansas field office of the FBI gets your book, gets your research, and they open up this investigation. When you published this, did you really think the FBI was going to almost pick up your book like a manuscript to the bad dealings of the Clinton family?
I did not think that at all. I mean, it was shocking stuff. I mean, I was pretty new to this stuff back then. I mean, we're talking 10 years ago. But no, I did not expect that at all. I would say, by the way, a much lesser known book, not as famous, was a book I wrote with John Solomon titled Fallout. And chapter 5 is titled Clinton Crash. It's a wonderful chapter. I read it recently going down memory lane because after all the WikiLeaks emails came out, the Podesta emails, we found what the Clinton campaign was doing at this time. And so you had Huma Abedin and Robbie Mook and all of the Clinton surrogates freaking out that there was this new book coming out. And they're like, I think David Brock can get a copy of it. So it's pretty great behind the scenes look thanks to the John Podesta emails of what really went on. And it's kind of surreal. I mean, they really freaked out about it. All of their internal campaign polling, according to WikiLeaks attachments, showed that the Uranium One issue was her biggest liability in the campaign. The fact that the Secretary of State would approve a deal to now, I mean, especially in going back and looking at it in light of the Ukraine and Russia war going on, it's like this was, borderline treason.
You described something called the Clinton blur. And it is the intersection of policy, purported philanthropy, and profit, all whirling together. And what's so interesting about looking back at that chapter now is it's kind of the same thing as the Biden blur. And it's actually an archetype for a lot of powerful people in Washington who are able to convert power into personal wealth. Take a moment and just describe the Clinton blur.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring up the Bidens because it's crazy times with having the Hunter Biden emails, the John Podesta emails. I mean, you'd never really think that you'd be able to get such a behind the scenes look. But we know these scandals with 100% certainty because we have the smoking gun emails. One of those smoking gun Biden emails is after this Clinton stuff is a scandal, they say we really want to set this up like the Clinton Global Initiative,
wow,
the Biden post-presidency. So they looked to the Clintons and the Clinton blur as a model to be emulated. The Clinton blur is simple. I mean, you got one person in power and one person who is out of power and collecting all of the checks. Hunter Biden was that for Joe. Bill Clinton and his speaking fees was that for Hillary. It's way more scandalous in some sense with the Clintons because they're spouses. So like every speech payment directly enriches the bottom line of the Secretary of State. At least with Hunter Biden, it's his adult child. I mean, by the way, John Podesta, his daughter was never saw any justice on this years and years ago. She was holding shares in his name for a Russian-backed company, Juul Unlimited. We broke that story. The Daily Caller did some good reporting on that as well. But John Podesta, his children, of course, John Kerry with Chris Hines. When you have these adult children going around, and the brothers, of course, of Joe Biden, the blur is having one person collect the checks while the person in power gives I mean, it's bribery by any other name.
How prominent do you think that is in Washington at the congressional and Senate level? Because I mean, you're picking on Democrats, but I remember how bizarre it was that the former Republican chairman of the Intelligence Committee, Senator Richard Burr, had like family members who were paid lobbyists who you could just go and rent out for influence. Is this something that like more and more in Washington are doing?
Oh, completely. I mean, it's the entire business model of Washington. You've got Mitch McConnell and Elaine Chao at various points. I mean, Mitch McConnell's always been in power, but Elaine Chao hasn't been. She's been on various boards. You've got even people I would consider pretty good, politicians and people who are fighting the good fight. Ron Paul's family had a lot of people, at least on the payroll. And so, it's a scale, it's a spectrum. I mean, having your wife and your, family on the campaign payroll, that's not necessarily corrupt. It is self-enrichment to a degree. But when you're selling policy, that's when it really crosses a line. So I would say everybody in politics, their family, has family members also in politics who benefit from the proximity to, the person who is in power. I just discovered a couple of months ago when I was looking at the EPA gold bars off the Titanic story, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse was griping extra loudly about the attempt to bring back some of this money that had been dumped into the pockets of Biden allies right at the 11th hour of the Biden administration. His wife has got one of these NGOs that is collecting climate cash, working for Ocean Conservancy. So you really can't swing a cat without hitting somebody whose family member's on the payroll, especially when it's taxpayer money. That's a big problem. If it's campaign money, that's less bad, I guess I would say.
Yeah, we had that with the Bernie Sanders dynamic as well, where he and his wife were getting very rich off of some of the donations that people were making $10, $15 at a time through kind of this veiled theory that his wife was placing the media buys and thus was entitled to a huge off the top percentage. Really
That was so scandalous. I mean, not like totally corrupt scandalous, but if you're a Bernie supporter and you're thinking he's railing against the millionaires, he's raking in millions of dollars, has 5 houses, and his wife is taking your campaign donations in the form of ad buy cuts. I think it was like upwards of 15%. So if the campaign pulls in 100 million or whatever, I mean, Bernie pulled in a lot of money, and they do tens of millions in media buys. That's a ton of money.
Bernie's vision on socialism wasn't to evenly distribute all of the money that his wife was raking off the top to everyone else in his campaign in his country. They got to be pretty capitalistic when it came to their own bank accounts. You set this in motion. And you're right that when we look back at the emails now, it would be a mistake to be so reductive as to say, well, that was about destroying evidence. Like, the real thing was the actual evidence and what it showcased and the culpability that it demonstrated. Do you think that revelation that you helped uncover is really what led the Clinton campaign and then ultimately the Obama government to say, we've got to blame Russia for all this. We have to come up with a bigger scandal than selling the State Department. And so out of whole cloth, they manufacture the Russia hoax.
I think it has a huge part, if not total. I mean, for one, it has to be a foreign power, because then you get the powers of the intelligence community. You get the FISA warrants. There has to be some specter of foreign influence, and he's working with spies. It could have been China, unlikely to be Iran, but of course they say, oh, his ties were made in China, or Ivanka Trump has some deals in China with her clothing line. So they could have done China. but they chose Russia, and it was far too convenient for the Clinton campaign and all of the deals of the Obama administration. It wasn't just Hillary Clinton and selling. I mean, Hillary was one of 9 votes on that CFIUS committee that approved the Uranium One deal. Every single one of the other votes had its own various reasons of saying yes. Any one of them could have said no, and they ultimately take their lead from Barack Obama himself. There was a deal he was trying to get done. He was trying to get done the Russia reset. It was actually part of the Iran nuclear deal, of all things. But they did a bunch of other Russia stuff, too. They released the Spies, the Illegals program, Anna Chapman. The show, the Americans, is based off of those spies who had embedded themselves at the highest level in the United States. They just gave them back to Russia for basically nothing. We didn't get anything back. We got a couple of British spies back, but not even Americans. They canceled the missile defense in Poland, all of the deals. They basically, the Skolkovo deal, which most people don't know about, but America helped Russia build a form of Silicon Valley outside of Moscow that turned out to be helping build its hypersonic missile capabilities, as well as its hacking capabilities, which is obviously ironic that they would blame Russian hackers after the State Department partnered with Russia to advance their tech capabilities. So the entire Obama administration had Russia liabilities. By projecting them onto Trump, it becomes kind of a he said, she said scenario. So at a minimum, it had that added benefit, if not the whole thing.
So much of U.S. foreign policy during our lives has been directed to stop the Sino-Russian fusion. It's not a good idea for the largest seller of energy to be aligned with the largest consumer of energy against American interests. And so we've kind of played them off of each other. But they also play us. And I'm wondering if you think all of the connections that Hillary and the Bidens and Obama himself had to China may have informed how they were thinking about Russia.
Yeah, I mean, the China connections are perhaps more insidious than the Russia ones, because there's actually, I think the security establishment actually does hate Russia, wants this Russia-Ukraine war to keep going. But the China connections are even deeper. So, I think you're right on that.
I am most troubled by those China connections that were funding all the people that ended up in the Biden administration at the Biden Center of UPenn. UPenn just stops complying with the law when it comes to disclosure of a bunch of their foreign gifts. And meanwhile, you've got Blinken, a bunch of the people that end up at the NSA, using an academic institution to take in money that they otherwise wouldn't be able to take in. So then it has them, quite beholden to China. And I would suggest, as we look at this war with Russia and Ukraine that was allowed to happen because of Joe Biden's various follies, that has inured greatly to the benefit of China. Like, China is buying out Russian assets in Cuba. China is buying out features of Eastern Russia. They've got to just be laughing at us as our politicians have become compromised in the ways that you've described.
Yeah, completely. I mean, the whole entire Biden administration was filled with people who had previously been on China's payroll. Tony Blinken, as you mentioned. I mean, you had WestExec with all kinds of China connections. I don't think anybody's Chinese connections were worse than the Biden families. I mean, the deals that they made, $1 billion private equity deal backed by the Bank of China, that Hunter and Frank Biden, I mean, they were getting $100,000 preloaded credit cards for shopping sprees, that the whole Biden family was basically on the payroll of China. And Hunter Biden admits on audio on his laptop, I don't know why he would record himself, but he says, I'm in business with the effing spy chief of China. I mean, there's so many smoking guns on the Hunter Biden laptop, which is why and it's really actually unsettling that the intelligence community, I mean, back to what you started with here, that the intelligence community would all circle the wagons, say it's all fake news. It's like, who are they working for? You have 51 former spy chiefs and spy officials saying that it's all fake news when it's actually prima facie evidence that the Biden family was corrupt. Where were the FISA warrants on Hunter Biden and his business partners? Why wouldn't they try to get him out of the race the way they did Donald Trump with Russia? I mean, they should have gone to Joe early on when there was still a primary and said, look, we know what you guys have been up to. This isn't good. It pretty much indicts the entire surveillance state.
I think I know why they didn't do that, though. They were very comfortable with Biden. Remember, Biden was a guy who was a long-time Senate Foreign Relations guy. He had this romanticized view of NATO in his mind. I'm sure he was reliving World War II, normative geopolitical discourse over and over again. And so they thought they could control him. So even if they knew that stuff, which they obviously did, you wrote a book about it, they didn't want to replace him with someone who might demonstrate any type of independent thought. And fortunately for them, I guess, in their own minds, Kamala Harris is not capable of independent thought. And so she was a suitable replacement when it came time for them, just not a suitable replacement among the voters. Having written these books about the Clinton corruption and the Biden corruption, we see the similarities in the blur. Where are they different? Maybe just the stupidity of Hunter. The Clintons were a little tidier than the Bidens, but where would you say, no, there's a unique feature of how the Clintons did it or the Bidens did it that deserves note?
I'm so excited when we get our Merriweather Farms shipments in. You get a beautiful piece of ribeye. Look at that marbling. Now, I take it out of the package, let it get down to room temperature. All I've got on here is a little salt, a little pepper, and then a little avocado oil. And then I've had my pan preheating with a little oil.
Head to merriweatherfarms.com and enter promo code MattG for 15% off your first order.
Yeah, well, I think you're exactly right on that point. They wanted someone they could control, the intelligence community, that is. And so that's alarming. I mean, that they would risk strengthening China, compromising the White House to China just so that they could control the president. That's really scary stuff. Where they differ, I mean, the Clintons are just far more shrewd, ruthless. They have way better bookkeeping skills. It actually has the aura and patina of a legitimate enterprise.
I see what you did there. I said that was very, very creative use of. We're going to make the viewers Google that. That was a nice little nugget you left them.
Whereas the Bidens were, I mean, they were just sloppy. They got away with it, I guess, for the reason you just mentioned, that he's a perfect puppet to control by various powers in the deep state. But yeah, just the sloppiness of the Bidens. At the same time, the scale. I mean, I never saw a $1 billion private equity deal backed by the Bank of China with the Clintons. I mean, you've got the $500,000 speech from the Kremlin bank to Bill. You've got the Canadian investors. That was $100 million for the Uranium One deal. But I mean, the scale of that Chinese deal, and I think that there's still money hidden away. I know a lot of people believe that the Bohai Harvest thing, that stake that Hunter had, and they've always said, oh no, we sold the stake. There's really no way of us proving that. Law enforcement would have to do that. But we've got reason to believe that it was transferred maybe to the brother, Sugar Bro, Kevin Morris, who may be holding it until all of the smoke clears. I think maybe it's back in their hands. We couldn't know because there's no more financial disclosures. So the Bidens seem to have gotten away with it, just like the Clintons did. I will say that they will both go down as among the most corrupt, if not the most corrupt, first families in American history. And that is a form of justice.
Do you know who stole more?
Who stole more from the American taxpayers?
Well, you just when I say steal more, I mean grift more. I mean who do you think came out of this having sucked more actual dollars out of the system, the Clintons or the Bidens?
Let's see, the Bidens, I think the Clintons probably.
Wow.
The Clintons, they had the Clinton Foundation got $2.5 billion, if not more. So that's, that's not the same as like $1 billion private equity deal backed by the Bank of China. In some ways, that's worse. A lot of those donations would be people just trying to curry favor, cozy up, that didn't actually get donations, which is why I say they're shrewd, is because they were able to take a ton of money and not actually have to sell anything for it, just the appearance of access. This Clinton Global Initiative, this annual event, selling memberships for 10 grand a pop. Plenty of people paid that just for the privilege of maybe getting a photograph with Bill, and no policies sold. But I think in the end, the Bidens seem to have squandered it. Hunter is, living. They don't have the same kind of lifestyle, I guess I would say. I mean, Clintons fly around on private jets. Bidens ride the Amtrak.
Well, and maybe that's what the Bidens wanted. I do wonder about the allegation you made regarding the potential for funds to be out there that we don't know about. Do you think that might have been one of the motivations for Hunter pursuing this wide swath of pardons? Not to shield himself from any prosecution, but just to make sure they got to keep the loot.
Yeah, definitely. If there is, the brothers barely got investigated. There's a sister, there's a daughter. So there's potentially a large. The Bidens were a very tight, very insular family. They would look out for each other. So by pardoning Hunter, the brothers, Joe was effectively pardoning himself, but pardoning the entire family from being, totally having a microscope into all of their finances, which the pardons came right as, House Oversight Chairman James Comer and Senator Ron Johnson. They were putting out stuff with the checks and the forgivable loans that apparently Joe's brother was writing to Joe. The amount of money moving around, and we know that there was, I think I've counted 16 or 17 different LLCs and numbered accounts in Biden names. The Clintons didn't have that kind of thing going on. So the Clintons were cleaner, and by pardoning the whole family, we may not ever get to see where all that money went.
But we do see a lot of this, emerge in the investigations that are going on now. And that's where I want to bring the discussion. I believe there is a major conspiracy charge coming that could include Obama, Clapper, Brennan, Comey, McCabe, even some of the people who were involved in the Mar-a-Lago raid, because they were taking back from Trump his evidence that exculpated him and implicated other people in wrongdoing around the Russia hoax. Obama famously has this meeting on December 9th where he draws these folks together. What do you want to see in the application of criminal law to that enterprise?
Well, a lot of people, are always, people have gotten cynical at this point. They don't think there is justice in this country, thanks in large part to people like James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Obama, Biden, Clinton, et cetera. They just don't.
And by the way, I would add Jeff Sessions to that list. If you're blaming people for not applying the law correctly, put failed U.S. Senate candidate Jeff Sessions on the list.
Well, let's throw Durham in there too.
Sure.
Yeah. So or Bill Barr, but also
By the way, both. You had me at Durham too. Like Durham does this big investigation, and at the end can't even tell us who the spies were reporting to that were chasing around George Papadopoulos. So I don't think Durham's hands are clean. I don't think Barr's hands are clean. But now there are events that are within the statute of limitations that are under review. I think that our expectation for a thorough review of the facts and the law is probably well founded with the current team.
Yeah, and so when you've got this, people not believing that there is justice in America, believing that it is a two-tier system, and when you've got all kinds of criminality at every level, from state and local to federal corruption. The one thing, what I really found interesting is when they went after Paul Manafort, wrongly in a lot of ways. Podesta and his brother had been doing the same thing. But when they threw the book at Paul Manafort for the FARA violations, a law that had been violated with impunity by basically everybody in Washington. Nobody's filing FARA filings on time. Nobody's disclosing all of the things that are required under that. When they threw the book at Paul Manafort and put him in Rikers, FARA filings skyrocketed. Everybody started following the rules again. And so that's just kind of it shows you that when justice is applied, people start following the rules again. So I think it's long overdue that those who have broken the law face justice, and I think we can start to heal and get people's expectations of living in a just system back on track.
I've had people have different views on this subject, so I'll obviously be interested in yours. Can we get justice without criminal charges? There are some of my colleagues in Congress who say, look, if we expose all this, if we create a real nasty deterrent around this with just the light of sunshine in these dark places, nobody will want to do this in the future. Do you think there have to be charges? And if there are charges, do you think there have to be convictions, or do indictments function as a sufficient deterrent?
I think there absolutely has to be charges. I think President Trump tried it the first time, and being magnanimous, taking the high road, saying that I know that I promised to lock her up, but I'm not going to do it, letting the statute of limitations elapse on so many crimes of the Biden administration, or Obama administration. And so he took the high road, and they threw it in his face, and they've only gotten more bold about it. They've only gotten more radical on the left. Now, here's where it gets a little dicey about not taking the high road and trying to, mete out justice in the strongest form possible. Is if you take a swing and you miss, the government party is going to come after everyone. We already saw them do it. I mean, they locked up, not just the January 6ers, but so many people close to Trump. I think I saw over 50 people. I mean, Steve Bannon, in various forms, the government party punished them. Trump himself got punished with charges that were totally ludicrous. And so it's on the one hand, it's getting justice. On the other hand, it is a bit of vindication and vengeance, which people do want to see. But if he doesn't see it through, then it's going to be like twice as hard, and everybody's going to jail.
Is Congress an appropriate forum, to resolve some of those misdeeds? And I ask this because it did feel good when we had some of these bad guys before us to grill them, ask questions. I think one of the reasons John Brennan has been referred for criminal prosecution is because he lied in a deposition where I was asking him questions. At the same time, Congress can't lock anybody up. They don't have charging authority. If you were there advising, the Jim Jordans and James Comers, how would you direct that congressional authority and congressional energy to its maximum effect?
I can't tell you how many, on the one hand, it's like, people talk about sternly worded letters and never getting any accountability from Congress, and it's a lot of TV moments. On the other hand, I can't tell you, Senator Ron Johnson, your work when you were there, the number of reports and information that you guys are able to get and put out into the public light and shine a spotlight on this stuff. You're able to get documents that we're not able to get. It's amazing what Congress has been able to produce, whether it's Oversight Chair James Comer, Senator Ron Johnson. I mean, I'm looking at Grassley letters from decades ago in productions that are fantastic. So I love the work that Congress does in the oversight and investigations capacity. I would say keep going.
What do you think's underutilized there? Where do you think they need to look more and they haven't yet?
Well, I think about this a lot. I don't know, you know better than I do, but the subpoenas, they have to be signed off on by liberal judges, so that's why it's so hard to get them to be complied with. I know that the subpoenas, we wish there were more of them for all kinds of stuff. I also know that Congress can only do so many things at once, and there's so much corruption to uncover. So
yeah, I can reveal a little bit about that decision making, because I was frustrated at times. When Democrats had the January 6th committee, it was clockwork. Somebody got a letter saying you have 15 days to show up and give us the testimony and documents that we are asking for. And if that did not happen in 15 days, on day 16, a subpoena was issued. So you've got to have some accommodation, but with the Democrats, it was like clockwork. I, at times, was frustrated that with Republicans, we'd send a letter asking, and then they'd send a letter back saying, we should have a phone call about this. We'd schedule that for about a week out. We'd have a phone call. Then we'd decide on the phone call what we really needed was an in-person meeting. Everybody would get together for a meeting. Well, then at the meeting, we decide what really needs another meeting at another time. And I'm sitting there saying, get these people under compulsory process. Now, the limiting principle on that is if Congress issues a subpoena, you're absolutely right. The person receiving it could go to a judge in Washington, D.C. You don't see a lot of them with MAGA hats in their old Facebook profiles, right? And they have the opportunity to quash that subpoena. But I would argue that Republicans would be way further ahead at getting to the precise factual allegations that you've made in your books and in your reporting if we would just get to the business of doing it. If we had the same rhythm that the January 6th committee did, we would have the congressional reports that would be validating a lot of the stuff that we saw in Clinton Cash, that we saw in Secret Empires, that we saw in the Control Oligarchs books that you were involved in. And so that's my urging to my friends in Congress. Get the subpoenas out. You know what? If you litigate them, if it doesn't go your way, fine. Find another person to send a subpoena to, because there is not a single significant living human whose calendar and email is not on like at least 3 devices, and that I think presents tremendous opportunity. Remember, in the January 6th case, it wasn't always the principals that they even got to and flipped and got to take their narrative. It was the low-level people like Cassidy Hutchinson who they were able to make stars through a series of misrepresentations and lies. I do want to get to your more recent work, Seamus. You have really been digging in on the Antifa problem we have in this country and the way that the left's street muscle has found its way to some of the most dangerous donors on the radical left. Talk to us for a moment about what you're looking at. What do you think it's going to reveal?
Yeah, so I was at the White House about 10 days ago briefing President Trump on Antifa at the White House roundtable on Antifa. And the message I wanted to convey to President Trump was, yes, Antifa is a story all about violence and the chaos that they're doing in cities like Portland and Seattle. But I think many people recognize, and I know President Trump does, that it is a story about money. This is a money story. And so we follow the money. We followed it to the top of the protest industrial complex. We're calling it Riot Inc. And like many businesses, Riot Inc. doesn't just have the foot soldiers, people on the ground. It's got entire divisions. It's got PR and communications divisions. It's got a very well-funded legal division that helps get these rioters out of jail as soon as they can and back onto the streets. And it's got investors. And so we really wanted to focus in on the investors. And that's, of course, George Soros and the Open Society Institutes and all of the Soros network money. But it's other things that people haven't heard about, not as many people have heard about, like the Tides Network or the Ford Foundation Ford Network, or the Arabella Network, which is really, people are starting to realize Arabella is 10 times bigger and more powerful in some ways than Soros. Of course, it's funded by Soros primarily, but also Bill Gates put a bunch of money into the Arabella Network, and even foreign money's going in there as well.
What are the goals of these donors?
Well, they've all in some ways got their own goals, and they're also working in lockstep. So they want, I titled the book Control Oligarchs. The number one thing that the through line that connects them all is they're all kind of control freaks. They want to control every aspect of your life. They want to control what kind of car you can drive, what kind of stove you can have, what kind of temperature you can set your home at. Seriously, they're working on, via the climate change power grab, all of those things. I think people are starting to wake up to the climate scam, so they'll have to recalibrate as they often do. But chaos creates a form of control. This is why George Soros likes open borders. He wants to flood the country with different factions, keep us arguing amongst each other. Also why he wants to jailbreak as many criminals as possible and put in place these soft on crime prosecutors. It creates this stew of kind of a chaos that keeps Americans arguing with each other and screaming about no kings or whatever, and making funny videos that are really not all that funny, rather than focusing on people like him.
Chaos is a form of control. Folks, I think we've got our title for the episode Seamus just gave right there, because it is so true. Now, if what you've just described is the archetype of the investor, bring me to the archetype of the street muscle. Who are these people? Are they paid rioters? Do they have regular jobs? Do I have to worry that late at night my dentist is secretly an Antifa?
Actually, you might have to worry about, well, no, dentists are probably fine, but, certainly the teachers that might live nearby. It's a staggering number of teachers. You had this one who was pantomiming Charlie Kirk's assassination. And so while it's plenty of memes have been made, this is really sick stuff. So, no, not every protester is paid. A lot of them ruin their Saturday, an otherwise beautiful Saturday, for free. But then there are thousands and thousands of paid professional organizers, professional protest groups. There's companies that like dial a crowd companies. I mean, I wouldn't say that the whole thing is that or even a significant portion. But again, there's this entire ecosystem and these groups. I mean, the list, we have thousands of grants going to these groups and dozens, hundreds. I mean, there's over 200 official No Kings partners and organizers on its website. I mean, just a staggering number. So you've got things like the ACLU, 5051, 350.org, and then like there's other ones, Dream Defenders, the Ruckus Society. We mapped out every single one of these professional protest organizations, came up with a number, and this is a conservative estimate, $294 million, according to the latest IRS 990 documents. And again, that's conservative. I mean, if you bring in even more groups with, like we're just mapping the Arabella, Soros, Tides, Rockefeller, and Singham networks. But there's there's the Packard Foundation, there's the MacArthur Foundation. There's all these billion dollar foundations out there that are also funding these groups. So again, 294 million's on the low end. If you brought in every left-wing funding network, you'd have over $1 billion, I'm sure.
And when you're able to lash resources like that to people who are willing to do harm, it can become very violent and very dangerous for the country. We certainly saw that during the George Floyd riots, and we seem to be seeing an effort to reignite that. And there are folks who would say, I'm not violent, I'm not Antifa. I went to my local No Kings rally to hang out with my boomer friends and catch a little pickleball afterwards. But I wonder whether or not the worst features of Antifa use those gatherings, those bigger gatherings like No Kings, for recruitment. What have you learned about how Antifa recruits people to become violent?
Oh, absolutely. Antifa is extremely well organized. And so you're 100% right. Recruitment for sure. It's also a way to gather, both for Antifa and for the Democratic Party. I mean, this is a huge pre-2026 mobilization effort to get all the numbers and the text messages and start getting cash from people who are fired up, segmenting and doing kind of market analysis on who's the most fired up. But as far as Antifa, definitely a recruiting area. The type of people who are in Antifa are pretty disturbed individuals. I think they were radicalized a long time ago, many of them, usually through the school system. They probably had a teacher like the one you saw pantomiming a Charlie Kirk assassination. And so, recruitment. Antifa, by the way, they're going to, I mean, as this crackdown continues, thank goodness that the judge is allowing the National Guard into Portland. I'm talking to reporters on the ground there. It's still chaotic days after it's basically been like one long riot running for months outside this ICE facility there. Once the crackdown really happens, and we're already seeing signs of it, they're going to drop the Antifa label. They're calling themselves anti-authoritarianism now, like anti-auth or something. So they'll change the name. They'll call it mutual aid, like Rose City Antifa. It's now Rose City, like mutual aid, or they drop the Antifa, but they are still extremely well organized. They're networked. They've got all kinds of, they use all the encrypted messaging apps, all of these decentralized funding platforms. There's a couple that we've sent to the FBI to look into. And so No Kings is definitely a recruiting ground. And it's also kind of like a place to like hide out and like hide out amongst the boomers and then create chaos in, the cities that are usual hotspots.
Hiding out amongst the boomers is how I've spent most of my life in Florida, but for a very different purpose than like throwing a Molotov cocktail at an ICE facility. I wonder how violent this could get and how high the acuity could get. If we look back at the summer of 2020 as an example of tragic, people were killed, law enforcement killed, federal property destroyed, but you saw a lot of the Molotov cocktail approach to violence, not mass casualty events. If unchecked, does Antifa have the capability to create more mass casualty events in our country?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, right after the Charlie Kirk assassination, we looked into this group called Armed Queers of Salt Lake City. And, there were reports that it was under investigation for connection. At this time, there's no evidence that they were. But what we found out about Armed Queers of Salt Lake City is it's this gun club of, I've seen pictures of 30 or so of them with high-powered rifles, which we're totally fans of the Second Amendment, don't want anybody's Second Amendment rights to be curtailed at all. That's not a sign of anything. What was really damning, though, is that they all flew down to Cuba and got this Marxist revolutionary training funded by Neville Roy Singham, the billionaire living over in China who's funding the People's Forum, which funds the Party of Socialism and Liberation and all of these other Code Pink, really, really radical organizations. They brought down over 700 various groups, BLM, Armed Queers of Salt Lake City, etc., down to Cuba to get revolutionary training on how to overthrow government. They put on their Substack quite openly on the Armed Queers Substack. I think the post has been scrubbed, but we archived it, that their goal is to overthrow the United States of America. And so this is like insurrection, or, there's got to be a charge for that kind of thing. The fact that they're training, and they actually get former Marines various U.S. service members who are experts in weaponry, have been trained on our tax dollars, who have become radicalized somehow, are now training these groups. And one that the Armed Queers of Salt Lake City was partnered with, did a training with, is called the John Brown Gun Club of Elm Fork. Well, one of its members shot an ICE officer in Alvarado, Texas. So thankfully the ICE officer survived, but he easily could have died. Then you had the more recent attack on the ICE facility in Texas. You've got, the political violence is escalating. With that much we know. And when you've got people who are training by the dozens with, people who are experts in overthrowing governments, experts in Marxist revolutionary rhetoric and recruitment, and also gun experts, it's a recipe for disaster. And then one last thing is that, you'd think that the Democratic Party, the progressive elites would, well, I don't know if you'd think it, but you'd expect that they say, you know what, it's not okay to kill your political opponents. But just look at Jay Jones, the candidate for Attorney General in Virginia. He says he wants to put 2 bullets in his opponent's head. And you've got the entire Democratic establishment circling the wagon saying, oh, well, it's just a joke or something, right in the wake of Charlie Kirk. So it's not a joke. I think the investors in Riot Inc. should disavow publicly all of the members of the No Kings movement that were saying that Donald Trump should have been shot if only the bullet had been just a little to the right, and other sick stuff. Just really, really... Yeah, I think normal people are really shocked that now it's all on camera. You're seeing that your teachers are celebrating that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I think there's been a big shift here since Charlie Kirk's assassination.
When you briefed President Trump, he wanted that to be public. He had a lot of people in. He took in a lot of information. He could have had that as a private briefing. But I think he wanted to send the message to some of these violent leftists that this is a government focused on this challenge and on this problem. We saw Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche take a leading role in ensuring that there was this designation of Antifa as a terrorist group. You've pointed out how they've kind of gone DEI on that. Like everything that was DEI now exists under another sort of DEI-ish name. You've described how Antifa is going to play that game. But do you think that they fear the Trump administration? Do you think that these violent leftists understand what they could be up against?
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen the video of one of these Antifa guys, I think it's in Portland or Seattle, who gets caught and he is shaking like a leaf. They're very tough under their masks, but the minute that they get busted, and they are crying about. So I think they are. When they're in a group and you get this mob psychology going, I think they're emboldened, and then all of a sudden reality smacks them in the face, and they're rolling on a cart into a cell, and you get this. I think underneath it all, they're actually scared, even if they don't know it yet.
Well, let's hope that fear changes behavior, because going after these groups, following the money trail as you've laid out, it's going to be a lot of work. And if we can just scare them into not wanting to hurt anybody, that probably would be all for the best. Seamus, how can folks continue to follow your work and your journalism as you stay on this really important case?
Well, thanks, Matt. I'm at Seamus Bruner on all platforms, SEAMUSBRUNER. Twitter is where I post most of the stuff. We've got a website where we put our investigations, thedrilldown.com. Thedrilldown.com. Schweitzer's got the Schweitzer Drill Down podcast. And that's where you can find all our stuff.
Well, we love being able to follow all the great research you're doing. Love having you as a guest here on One American News and on the Matt Gaetz Show. And look forward to following up with you soon and seeing how it's all going. Seamus Bruner, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Matt. A lot of fun.
Are you ready for flu season or just hoping for the best? Don't get caught off guard. Be prepared with All Family Pharmacy. Their process is simple and straightforward. A licensed doctor reviews every order. The prescription is included. Unlike big chain pharmacies that push the flu shot as the only option, All Family Pharmacy believes in medical freedom. You get real options. You pick the medicines you know work for you. Now is the time to stock your cabinet. They have everything you need: Tamiflu for flu treatment and prevention, antibiotics, antivirals, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, immune support, and more than 200 medications to choose from. It is my go-to pharmacy for prescription medications and supplements delivered right to my door. Shipping is fast, and if you need it right away, overnight also available. So be proactive, prepare, visit allfamilypharmacy.com/Matt. Use code MATT10 to get 10% off. Again, that's allfamilypharmacy.com/Matt, code MATT10. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. We appreciate you being here for Anchormen. Give us a 5-star rating. Leave us a review. If there's a guest, someone you'd like me to chat with on the show, you can leave that in the notes, and we would love to get your perspective on it. Make sure to tune in next week for Anchormen. And as always, The Matt Gaetz Show, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 Pacific, only on One American News.
Want to see more great videos like this? Click on the link below to subscribe to OAN Live and watch Dan Ball's Real America and The Matt Gaetz Show on Dish Channel 212. Tune in, subscribe, and watch today.